The World War II simulation is a hands-on, interactive activity designed to stimulate interest in the Second World War. Students will be put into leadership positions and burdened with the same problems and circumstances faced by the real leaders in 1939. The World War II simulation will be most effective for students that have already completed the World War I simulation. With the addition of resources to the World War II simulation, they have similar rules but is much more complex. The one aspect of the World War II history simulation that makes it so unlike a board game or video game is the human element. You don't know what your opponent is going to do, and even if you did, you wouldn't know how they were going to go about it and get it accomplished. That's the human factor in the simulation. Students are constantly problem solving as conditions can change by the minute. Remember, there is no guaranteed outcome. Students are constantly working on their persuasive skills as they try and influence others to go along with their master plan. Students are constantly trying to gain the advantage by reading ahead in the book and researching their opponents. The simulation is fully customizable in that you can add or delete certain parts to make it work for you. For example, I know one teacher in Winnipeg, Canada that is going to add the Canadian element into the simulation to go along with his curriculum. This is the best way I have found to get students excited about history. The big map is divided into countries that were involved in World War II. The Allies are gold in color, the Axis powers are yellow, and the neutrals are light green. Uninvolved countries are gray and cannot be involved in any way. Some countries are divided into zones like Germany. All the seas, oceans, and major islands are also marked. Significant geographical boundaries like the Suez Canal and the Ardennes Forest create a more realistic landscape. The seas and oceans are divided into zones to create a more realistic time frame for sea movement and transport of troops. Each land zone and country are separate objects to enable you to change their color on the map, denoting a change in ownership or a change in alliance. The students love to see those colors change. After each class period, I save as a copy of the period simulation as a year and post it to Moodle. Students then have an accurate map to plot their strategy for the next day. If you don't have Moodle or a website to post maps, you can print them out and post them outside your classroom. You could also upload them as a Google Doc. Students would then be able to print them off anytime. Since World War II is much larger in scope, we have a second map. The Pacific Theater map details the war in the Pacific. The Battle Calculator is a Microsoft Excel spreadsheet. It's designed so all you have to do is plug in the numbers and ratings for each country in the battle, and it will automatically tell you the following: who the winner is, how many forces the victors have left for each country. The losers, by the way, will have nothing left. Because World War II was a more mobile war compared to World War I, the defenders' rating should be raised 1 point, but no deductions made for the attacking countries. You have a space to add those positive and negative numbers. Naval battles are calculated the same way. Ratings are calculated at the bottom from the natural resources spreadsheet to the left. In the World War II simulation, natural resources are located in general where they were in 1939. Coal is marked by a red square. Oil is marked by an oil derrick. Iron ore is marked by a capital I. Rubber is marked by a rubber leaf. Controlling these areas means controlling those resources and brings to life the strategic importance of that region. Students can transfer resources to their allies with the Transfer of Resources slip. The slip gives you a written record of the transfer and allows you to keep track and back up your spreadsheet in case you get lost. We also use these slips to transfer resources when countries are taken over. The box in the upper left is used to mark sheets that have been entered into the spreadsheet. This saves time and frustration in case you are interrupted when updating the resources spreadsheet. The second part of the Battle Calculator spreadsheet keeps track of a country's natural resources. This spreadsheet is updated after every class. No real-time transfers of resources are possible because you will not have time to do it during class. The World War II simulation uses 4 natural resources to calculate the power rating of each country: oil, iron ore, coal, and rubber. The H, or have column on the spreadsheet, represents the amount of that resource that the country has originally when the simulation starts. The T, or total column, represents all the resources available for that country, or the have plus acquired. The A, or acquired column, represents how much resource that country has acquired through trade or conquering. The N, or need column, represents how much resource that country needs to achieve a full 1.0 for that resource. With a total of 4 resources, a country can add 4 points to its rating by having all the resources it needs. So in summary, if you add your resource ratings to your beginning military rating, that is your overall rating. Fortunately, the spreadsheet does this for you. All you have to do is keep the resources up to date. If you happen to make a mistake, that's okay, because chance plays a role as well, just like in the real thing. The Natural Resources Worksheet is a spreadsheet for students to keep track of their natural resources they have acquired, and resources they have traded to their allies. This is an excellent tool for a one-to-one computer situation. The Teacher Binder includes materials to organize and keep the teacher on track during the simulation. The teacher instructions include the preparation for the simulations, what materials are needed, and how to organize them so students understand what's going on. One of the topics included is how to pick your leaders. This is a very critical step. You need to try and match the personalities of your students to those of the countries they will represent. The teacher instructions include the organization of documents for the student binders. Also included are some extras designed to jazz up the simulation. One example is the playing of intense music in the background. The students love that. You can also come up with your own ideas. The teacher notes are used to keep track of day to day, or in this case year to year, what country will be starting in the order of turns and what phase they are in. Is it war or is it movement after war? This can be a very highly contested issue if proper notes aren't taken. Students take this simulation personal, and even though some things aren't fair, this is one area it has to be. The student binders can be as simple as a manila folder, a 3-ring binder, or if you have a one-to-one laptop program, you could go all electronic documents. The student binder contains a student overview, the alliance map, the rules of the simulation, list of the leaders, the world situation summary, the national strength report, color maps of both the simulations, and the top secret documents. In the back of the binders, you can place plastic folders for each period you are conducting the simulation. This allows students to keep their papers organized and separated from each period. Students are constantly referencing their binders for information during the class period. The binder templates are included in the simulation. The World Situation Summary outlines how fledgling democracies fell into chaos and emerged as strong fascist nations. The lack of leaders with charisma for the democracies allowed fascist leaders such as Hitler and Mussolini to come to power. The Japanese are making aggressive moves in the Pacific, and finally the world is shocked by the non-aggression pact between the Soviet Union and Germany. The alliance map shows how interconnected all the major countries of Europe were. Students can visualize how difficult it would be to keep a war isolated between two countries. Students use the alliances map to develop their strategy and contemplate what reactions will occur if certain actions would be taken. This is where strategic thinking gets involved. Students must anticipate other countries' reactions. The simulation rules outline how armies can move and attack. The rules are also describe how navies can move, attack, and transport troops from one place to another. Students will get a general idea on how to roughly calculate how much power a country and its allies have or can throw into a battle. Special geographic limitations are also outlined to make the simulation more realistic. The National Strength Report gives students a snapshot of the military power in each country. Students can see every country's army size and rating before the war began. The report also shows what resources are located in each country. Students, however, will not know how many reserves a country has or how fast they will get those reserves into their army. Naval size and ratings are also disclosed. Top secret documents include the number of reserves that can be mobilized. In the World War II simulation, only one country is allowed to mobilize. Each document has an individual summary of their country. The summary contains historical information as well as background information about their objectives. Top secret documents have a list of objectives that the country needs to complete. Students will be very protective of their objectives because if other countries figure them out, they will be very limited into what they can negotiate. Other documents included in the simulation. The declaration of war sheets are filled out by the students and handed in to the head table when students want to declare war on another country. Students must plan carefully if they are organizing a multinational force or attacking multiple locations in a particular sequence. The sheets help keep you organized, and the students get a big kick out of signing them. Alliance sheets are used by students to keep a written record of alliances formed with other countries. Alliances can be public or secret. In the beginning, students feel confident that an alliance is a bond that cannot be broken. As the simulation progresses, they realize that is not the case. As countries begin to betray one another in pursuit of their own self-interest. Alliances are only as good as the word of their leader. They are not bound to uphold them, just as real countries operated during World War II. After you have printed off and organized your papers, you will need to make the most critical decisions of your simulation, picking who will be the leaders of each of the countries. Your class sizes will dictate how you organize your students and countries. The simulation should be able to accommodate anywhere from 12 to 30 members in a period. Some people have tried 7 and been successful. Maybe a little less than 12 and maybe a little more than 30. The best leaders are the ones you believe will be the most involved. Personality also plays a large role in determining who will be the aggressor nations. I have grouped some of the smaller countries together for one person to control. One of the drawbacks that students brought to my attention was that some smaller countries that were wiped out early on left the students uninvolved in the simulation. This is another area you can customize to fit your needs. The role of foreign minister in the larger countries will be a very active role in simulation. I would put students that may be inclined to sit and watch in this role, as their leader will direct them in daily tasks of negotiating and strategizing. The final report is 4 pages of questions that can be answered from the simulation and your textbook. The first 3 pages are a mix of knowledge and higher order thinking questions along with questions answered from their experiences in the simulation. The final page lists their objectives for their country. Students are then required to explain how they tried to achieve those objectives in order to receive credit. I give them credit even if they fail to achieve their objectives, as long as their explanations prove they made a legitimate attempt to complete them. I'd like to thank you for taking the time to learn about our World War simulations. I hope you'll consider us in the future, and thanks again.